I Hayabusa swapped my $500 Chinese buggy during a hurricane, and I'm turning it into a mini trophy truck. So we got a ton of upgrades in this episode. I redid the front suspension, the rear suspension, and built an aerodynamic cowl for it. Huge shout out to Raptor for sending me a set of wheels for this buggy, this Chinese buggy. I mean, this is the nicest set of wheels probably ever been in possession of. And also incredible shout out to Rocky Mountain ATV. Basically they shipped these tires out to me. These are 30s, 8-ply. We went from the dinky 26s. Well, actually we started out with 19s, then we went to 26s, and now we're running 30s. Should have plenty of power to push these. Anyways, beautiful looking wheels. 14x7. It's gonna look killer. And this is actually a wider offset too, so we can get the correct kingpin angle. Now with this tire, the lugs are spaced closer. It's also a harder tire, so it should give us that oversteer characteristic I'm looking for. But then again, all the buggies in the past have had zero power. So I decided to redo the entire steering and some of the front end and relocate the steering wheel to a higher and more comfortable position. Alright, so the steering U-joint is gonna hit on this bar. So we gotta get rid of this, and then we gotta cut these bars and run them up to here. So now the only thing left of the Chinese buggy is the two little yellow bars at the bottom and the stock seats and the steering wheel and steering column. Now I'm mounting up my electronic power steering module. I gotta have it close to the motor because the harness isn't that long. Some of you are probably like, there's no way this kid is putting power steering on this Chinese buggy, but yeah, I am. So I designed this bracket here. Huge thanks to SendCut Send. I'm gonna install it in a place where it's out of the way of everything and up high, but we gotta make sure that all the steering angles are fine. So I made some reinforcement plates for those front shock mounts to make him a little bit more beefy and stronger for jumps. Now I gotta make some gussets to cover that up. So I took a piece of tube and made a gusset. Alright, I got some extra time. I'm going to build a hood slash dash for this, and it's going to be all one piece and cover everything. Basically to cover up the ugly welds and also conceal all the electric stuff. I did some CAD, aka cardboard aided design here. Got this big sheet of aluminum and cut it out all in one piece. Why it looks like a bat wing, I don't know. This finger brake kit from Swag Off-Road is one of my most used tools. As you can see there, I put a shirt under the aluminum to not score it up, and it actually worked. But I am running into the limits of this tool. I need to get me a wider one already. And there's the hood all mocked up. I wasn't a fan of how it looked, but I decided to just push through, finish it, and if we need to, I could always add some vents to it. Here I'm setting the dashboard in place. This is gonna house our gauge cluster and all the switches. And it's gotta be removable too. To weld this all out, I'm using my HTP Pro Pulse 220 and I'm using double pulse MIG. It's really nice for thin aluminum. You can see automatically the difference welding inside corner. All the argon gas pulls up and you have more shielding, whereas welding on the outside corner, the wind was blowing all the argon away. Regardless, we still got a good weld. If you grind the welds down too thin, then the thing will crack from vibration. So that's why it's important to have a weld on the back side to give it extra strength. I am going to cheat a little bit and use body filler right there where I join those two pieces together. Then welding outside in wind, it's never going to... So I'm just going to cheat and use body filler. Guys, with winter fast approaching, it's getting cold, and you gotta keep those feet warm. That's why today's video is sponsored by Brunt. Brunt makes some of the best work boots out there with the key emphasis on comfort, durability, and styling. This is the Omen boot. It's ideal for when you're in a rush, you need to get somewhere really quick. They slip in, slip out, and they're nice enough to where you could like dress them up and wear them on a date night. A year ago, they sent me their Marin boots, and you can tell there's quite a bit of miles on them. What I like about Brunt boots is that there's no break-in procedure. You simply just put them on and you're ready to rock and roll. Brunt also gives you a risk-free trial to try out their boots, and if you don't like them, you can send them back and shipping is on them. If you want something that's low and has great ankle mobility, Brunt also makes some low sneakers with steel toes built into them. If you're interested in a high quality, durable, and stylish pair of boots, check out Brunt Workwear and use my code Vasily10 to get $10 off a $60 purchase or more. That'll be the first link in the description. Huge thanks to Brunt for sponsoring this video, but let's get back to the live action. So now to tackle the most complicated part of this build, the steering. This is my center load steering rack. It's a pretty nice unit. So I'm going to TIG weld up some mounts for it. And the easy part is going to be mounting it, but the hard part is going to be setting up all the steering perfectly. Alright guys, I'm mounting up the steering rack. As you can see, I had to build this little Heim joint carrier because this is a center load steering rack. Anyways, as you can see, I got it lined up with these lines to hopefully minimize bump steer, and we got it as low as possible so that it stays true to the lower A-arm. We're gonna go ahead and pull these spindles off, weld them. I've got to do some clearance in here. It doesn't turn all the way, so yeah. Alright, moment of truth. I'm gonna check for bump steer. Okay, there is a little bit, but it's fine. It is fine. Okay guys, so I totally overlooked Ackerman. Basically, we're gonna have to push this tie rod mount outwards, and so that if we draw a line through here, through the center of these, it should meet at the center rear axle. Building front suspension is easy, but it's hard at the same time. So much things I gotta worry about: caster, toe, Ackerman, kingpin angle, camber, dynamic camber, and we gotta mount our brakes, and I had to clearance the spindles so that they could actually steer. So you can see there, this driver's side did not come easy. We had more bump steer on this side for some reason. And then our steering was binding, so I had to change the top A-arm completely on both sides to free up the steering and give it more angle at its lowest droop. Alright, so the placement of the steering rack turned out to be a little bit too low because, you know, on full lock it's going to rub the A-arm. So I'm going to have to relocate it higher up. I had to redo the Heim joint carrier, make it slightly wider, and then I lifted up the steering rack, and that was not fun. Okay, you can see all these tack welds on the spindle. It's like hours of me trying to figure out or reduce the bump steer, and I finally got it. Beautiful. Just gonna glue the dash in. So now I'm gonna work on hooking up all the U-joints to the electric power steering motor. We got pretty lucky there. Barely had enough room to squeeze a shaft inside there, and the same thing on top. Alright guys, the first steering test ever. Well, that's pretty easy. But I guess there's no load on it. Man, I don't even know if we need electric power steering. Hi guys, let's see if this wow, it's so easy. Look, one finger. Alright, let go. Okay, dude, that is a world of difference. Now jumping back on the rear, we gotta go ahead and reinforce everything. Make sure it can handle off-roading and jumps and whatnot. So we're gonna add these diagonal bars here to keep that rear section strong. It's going to need a lot of support back there. So basically these heim joints here were not in line with the CV axle, which was causing a bind. So we gotta kind of redo the whole trailing arm suspension. The way I had it set up like that is we could still adjust the toe, but with this way we won't be able to adjust the toe at all. Okay, this time the design is going to be much stronger. So here are the factory Miata spindles, and so I've hollowed this out so I could fit a bushing in there, and then our trailing arm is going to weld to that bushing instead of having tabs or having it on the ends. So that's going to be the strongest way to do it. Alright guys, so my idea did not work. It works, but the hub toes in and out too much. And I suspect that's because of these pivots right here. They have to be equal length. So this one would have to be out here. So guys, I am just defeated, running behind schedule. I was already hoping to try to get the engine running, but yeah, a lot of time went into this trailing arm, and I'm gonna have to scrap it. I want to do something like that. We might not put this bar in, but we gotta leave enough room to take the engine out and be able to service the clutch and all that stuff. So you can see there's not much space in here at all. The radiator barely clears the transmission cover, but it is a beefy radiator. And then the airbox will be, I'll flip it upside down and it'll be, you can see there's very little room for anything. So I've got to relocate the ports. I'm going to cut this port off and put it on the other side. I'm going to cut this off, run some smaller pipes on there. And then I've got to cut the filler neck off and put it on top. I got the new ports welded in. This blocked off here, filler neck here up top. All the mounts actually line up very nicely. This one goes to the X, and then these two will be pretty easy to make. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get those made. Guys, I didn't want to, but we're gonna have to ditch the whole trailing arm suspension. I'm having issues setting up the travel because of the spindle design. The spindle design is whack, so we're just gonna have to go to double A-arms. Honestly, I should have went with double A-arms from the very beginning, but I just thinking I guess I just wanted to cut the corner, do some trailing arm suspension, and because of the spindle design, it's not really working out. Alright, so we got the suspension tabs located. We're going to have to remove this bar here, weld on a bracket here, and our final suspension mount will go like right here, so that on the other side it clears the chain. I spent days tuning the trailing arm suspension, and I got this much work done in just an hour. This is only a 6-inch travel shock, so I have to push it in a lot, so that way for every like 3 inches it's going to move 1 inch here. I've got high hopes. Wow, it just keeps going. Alright, so let's count usable travel. So we'll start out at about right here. 30 minus 14, that's 16. That's perfect. And because the shock is pushed this much in, this part of the A-arm is going to have to be really strong so it doesn't bend or flex when I go for jumps, and that's going to be hard to do because this is 1-inch tubing and 1-inch tubing is pretty weak, but I mean, I guess we could plate it. So I'm gonna put my wheel on, and if it's higher than the frame, then that means it's too much travel. So now we're gonna mount the wheels and tires and get them balanced. Again, huge thanks to Rocky Mountain ATV and Rock Tricks. They got a ton of parts and wheels and tires to choose from, so check them out down below in the description. Alright guys, so been tweaking the suspension. I limited the travel. So now let's see what it comes out to. "13 inches of travel, which is spot on. The front only has 14 or 15. I think it's 15.
Alright guys, so I finished one side. Now I gotta copy that to the other side. So I'll take these off, put them on my welding table, and I'll match up all the tubing to them. And I'm still gonna add quite a bit more triangulation to the bottom A-arm, as well as sway bar links, attachments for sway bar links.
Guys, the Buggy is finally a roller. This was just so much pain. What I thought was going to take me 2 weeks took me a whole month to do. But these Tusk Terabytes from Rocky Mountain ATV sure do look amazing. And combined with the black wheels and this hood actually turned out, you know, from the side it looks really sick. I mean guys, I'm just so happy with how the Buggy is turning out. So now I'm going to take the mock-up engine out and put our actual Hayabusa engine in that supposedly runs. I was very worried when I looked down in the valves were rusty. So it's kind of like a pretty big gamble. I hope none of that water got inside the cylinders, so I'm going to put that thing in. Hopefully it starts, fingers crossed. That's what I want to do with the exhaust, although the chain is a little bit close. Man, that just looks so sick. The whole rear end of this Buggy turned out really sick. Guys, check this out. So I got me a wing here to spice up the rear end, kind of break up some of those curves, and I think it's going to look sick. Definitely needs a big wing up here. I don't know what I was thinking. Actually, not bad.